Good afternoon. My name is Ryan, and we live right down the road from Dollywood Theme Park. We've been to all of the festivals through the years, and we've gotten a good feel of when it's very crowded and when there are not too many people in the park. So if you're trying to figure out when is the best time to visit Dollywood in 2025, you've come to the right video. I'll be walking you through each month, talking about the different festivals that are going on, when school is out, when there are different car shows to avoid. So if you're looking to avoid crowds or just figuring out when's the best time to come to Dollywood, I hope this video helps. So let's head into my office and check out the calendar. Now that we're in my office, I wanted to pull up the Dollywood 2025 operating calendar to go over all of the different months and help you determine the best time to visit for you and your family. First thing I want to point out is you don't see January or February on this calendar as it's closed throughout the entire month of February. The last day the park was open for the 2024 season was January 5th. Even though the park is closed down throughout the month of February, I will say that's the best time to stay at one of the Dolly resorts for the lowest price. There's typically some really good January and February deals. So if you've ever wanted to stay at Dollywood's Dreammore or Heart Song resort, you can do that in those 2 months for a really low price. Both of them have indoor pools that you can enjoy throughout the month of January and February. So even though the park itself is closed, you can still enjoy the resort during those months at a fantastic cost. And as we look at the entire 2025 operating calendar from afar, if you look at any of the days that the park itself is closed, any of these white days right here, they're closing down the park on a lot of these days in April, May, and August, and even into September, because they don't anticipate a high volume of people. So any days around there, you should find that there would be very low crowds. Or when you get into November and December, they're closing it for Thanksgiving and Christmas. But let's go through every month on the calendar, checking out when there are any car shows or when school is in and out for certain holidays. Starting with the month of March, you can see March 14th is the first official day that the park opens. It's specifically open for pass holders on the 14th, but it's open to anyone that has a ticket on the 15th on for the rest of the month of March. I would anticipate, but I can't guarantee, that Dolly Parton should be making an appearance on the 14th and perhaps the 15th. I would expect that if the weather's good and if Dolly can, she will do a parade perhaps on Pass Holder Preview Day on the 14th and again on the 15th. But I know a lot of people say, hey, when can you see Dolly in the park? And from my perspective, when I look at the calendar as a whole, March 14th and 15th are going to be your best shots that I can think of this year, as we don't have any big ride openings that she would come back for, our new resort openings that she would come back to cut the ribbon type of activities on the calendar at this point in time. March 14th also kicks off Dollywood's I Will Always Love You Music Festival. This is the third year that they'll be doing it in 2025. It was actually a 50th anniversary celebration for Dolly's I Will Always Love You song once it hit its 50th year. They did it again last year, and they're bringing it back again. This is a music festival where you can see all sorts of musicians around the park. There is a lot of pink throughout the park and lots of great photo opportunities that you can take advantage of during the I Will Always Love You festival. It's the shortest festival of all the festivals we're about to look at. I also wanted to point out in March, there is a car show March 24th through the 29th, and that is Ponies in the Smokies. Not a massive car show, but something to keep in mind. I think the week before should be less busy than this week right here because of that car show. Another date I want to point out is March 28th is the last day that kids are in school. Locally, it's actually a half day for them. So I would anticipate crowds picking up as of this Friday on into that last weekend. If you were targeting a weekend in March, I would go for this weekend right here, this 21st through the 22nd. One last thing I want to point out with the month of March is we still get some chilly days here in the Smoky Mountains. So just be prepared that you could show up in the first part of your day. The morning could be a little bit on the chilly side. So I would target this week right here and hopefully a sunny day in the forecast to be able to enjoy the day. Now, as we look at April, I wanted to remind you that this first week in April is when local schools are out for spring break. Keep in mind some other areas of the country in Alabama or Georgia or the Carolinas might have a different week, perhaps before or right after. So just be prepared that you might hit some spring break crowds this first week in April. I also wanted to point out a very popular car show in Pigeon Forge is the Spring Rod Run, which runs April 10th through the 12th. And then the 13th is the last day of the I Will Always Love You Music Festival. So I would anticipate the first weekend in April to be busy with spring break crowds, the second weekend to be busy with a popular car show in Pigeon Forge. So once the car show leaves and the I Will Always Love You Festival ends, the 14th, 15th, 16th, and even into the 17th should be some slow days. Just keep in mind there's no actual festival happening during those days. Then on Friday, April 18th will be the first day of Dollywood's Flower and Food Festival. When that festival kicks off, just keep in mind most kids have already had their spring break, are in school on that Friday the 18th. So the park isn't that busy, even though it's an opening day of a new festival. We plan to be there, Lord willing. We'll do our best to show you all of the new food, what you can get with their tasting pass, and put together some guides of the new festival when that kicks off. But if you look at the rest of the month, I feel like the second half of April has some really slow days when it comes to crowds. You can see that's what Dollywood is anticipating, having the park closed a number of days. So if you could slip in on the 21st, the 23rd, or the 25th, 28th, or 30th, any of these weekdays, I would anticipate very low crowds. One thing to keep in mind is when the festival first kicks off on the 18th, there are some things that have not been planted that long. So as that festival goes on, more things kind of bloom out and come to life on the latter part of the festival. So it's not that you can't enjoy them on the front end, just if you were to go into our next month, you might find even more beautiful blooms as that festival goes on. So as we look at the month of May, you can see they're anticipating some lower crowds during the weekdays. So they are closed on some Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you could slip in on a Wednesday on the 7th or the 14th, and I would think you'd have some really low crowds. You could ride lots of rides, walk around and enjoy all the flowers around the park with not too many people around you. I did want to point out that on May 15th through the 17th, there is a Ford F100 car show. It's not a huge car show. There might be a little more people on that particular weekend. And the other thing I want to point out in May is when Dollywood's Splash Country opens up. You can see it opens up on Saturday the 10th and Sunday the 11th. It's closed that next week, and then it's open for the rest of the month starting May 17th. As I mentioned, with the theme park having some chilly days in March, when it comes to the water park, the water itself might be still a little bit chilly on the first few days. By the end of May, I think you're good to go. The water's definitely warmed up more, and you can really enjoy nice water throughout the month of June and July, which you can see the water park's hours extend starting June 8th. But before we get to June, there's one more important date, which would be May 30th. That's going to be the last day that students are in school locally here in Sevier County. I think it's a half day for them. So I would anticipate crowds jumping up a lot more after the 30th. So as we look at the month of June, most schools are going to be out by June 1st. And that first week, you can still enjoy the Flower and Food Festival until the 8th is going to be the last day that you can enjoy Dollywood's Flower and Food Festival. So the second week in June has some days where there's no festival going on, the Flower and Food is over, and then on the 14th is when Dollywood's Smoky Mountain Summer Celebration kicks off. That means every night the park is now open until 9:30 instead of 9 now, and they'll have a fireworks and drone show that you can enjoy, which will be changed up this year for the 2025 season, celebrating Dollywood's 40th anniversary. Our plan is to be there on the 14th to check out all of the new summer food offerings and put those together on a video guide for you, as well as check out that new drone show and fireworks and try to put together a summer Dollywood guide for you here on our channel. So this is a great time to remind you, if you're new to our channel, make sure you are subscribed so you're not missing any of our Dollywood guides that come out this year. I also just want to point out there is a car show on June 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's Pontiac's and Pigeon Forge. So it's going to bring in a little more people to the area on that first weekend. Now looking at the month of July, I would just anticipate a lot of people enjoying Dollywood Smoky Mountain Celebration happening every day. The park doesn't close at all at July. That first weekend should be the busiest. The 4th and 5th are days that I would probably avoid. There's a big parade in Gatlinburg on Independence Day, and you're just gonna see a lot of people in the Smokies on Independence Day weekends. And if your schedule would only allow you to come in July, I would aim for a weekday, or even Sundays are better than Saturdays in my opinion. And I would think about utilizing a time saver pass if you're wanting to ride a number of rides. If you're just coming to walk around to see the different decorations and enjoy the fireworks and the drone show, and you're not worried about riding too many rides, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you want to ride a lot of rides while you're here, I would definitely consider getting a time saver pass if you're coming in the month of July. And then as we jump over to August, there are 3 days in August you can enjoy the summer celebration, the drone show, the fireworks, which end on Sunday the 3rd. And then after the 3rd, that first week, the park reduces down the hours, and locally, the 8th of August is when school is projected to start back up locally. So anytime after the 8th in the month of August, you're gonna find very low crowds, which again, is why you can see that Dollywood is closing down on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the latter part of August. So if you were to come to the park on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday on the second half of August, you should see very low crowds. And I would say you probably might not even need a time saver pass, as there might not be too many people and you could enjoy tons of rides. But if I were to avoid a weekend in August, I would avoid the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, because that is the Smoky Mountain Jeep Invasion in Pigeon Forge. So that particular weekend, we're gonna see an increase in people in the area, but the 15th, 16th, or the 29th or 30th would be days that I might aim for and find that there's pretty low crowds at Dollywood. So now as we get to September, you can see this first week is not going to be very busy. However, when you get to the second weekend, on the 12th is the first day of Dollywood's Harvest Festival. We love the Harvest Festival, even just walking around at night and seeing all of the different pumpkins that are illuminated. It's not a scary festival. There aren't things that are going to scare your kids. It is a very family-friendly festival. They'll come out with some new food and some characters that will come out in the park starting September 12th. I would anticipate that the opening weekend of the Fall Festival will be a little bit busy, as that is when the Fall Rod Run is, September 11th, 12th, and 13th. It's a very big car show in Pigeon Forge, so there's gonna be a lot of people. Maybe even if they're not all necessarily headed to Dollywood, just the area will be pretty congested with traffic, and you're gonna have a hard time getting to and from Dollywood in the area during that weekend. So I might wanna avoid that opening weekend, but you could come during the weekday right after that weekend, and it should be some slower days in September when kids are still in school, or even the following weekends. There's nothing on the calendar that I see on the 20th or 27th that really sticks out that I would anticipate massive crowds then. However, when we get to the month of October, I will say that crowds will start picking up by this point in time. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park among all national parks, and people love to come to the Pigeon Forge area to see all of the fall colors, which typically peak. It can vary by a week here or there, more earlier or later based on the weather, but it's typically around mid-October. As the leaves begin to change, not only in the national park, but just the whole area inside Dollywood theme park itself, it becomes very beautiful with all the fall decorations out and all the natural trees within the park starting to change. You're going to see an uptick in crowds around mid-October as everybody is trying to be here to enjoy those. I would say Saturdays in October, you should see a pretty good amount of people. On Saturday 11th, 18th, and 25th, you can see the last day of Dollywood's Harvest Festival is October 27th. And then it's closed down for the rest of the month. And then we get to Saturday, November 1st, which will be the first day of Dollywood's Smoky Mountain Christmas. And when the Christmas Festival kicks off on November 1st, there'll be millions of Christmas lights that you can walk around and enjoy, and Christmas decorations and activities and shows. And they'll bring out some new Christmas food for the new festival once that does kick off. I would anticipate the weekdays in November are actually not too bad, because again, most kids are still in school. But as you get closer to Thanksgiving, which is Thursday the 27th, the park itself is closed on Thanksgiving. I would say that you're going to see crowds dramatically pick up starting November 21st. The 22nd should be busy, and the days leading up to Thanksgiving this last year, I remember trying to pull into the parking lot and there was just cars everywhere. So if you're trying to avoid crowds, I would avoid that last week in November, because once you're in December, the crowds will drop back down as kids are no longer on Thanksgiving break. So that first week, that second week, in my opinion, are not going to be too bad. However, I would say starting about, let's say the 12th, 13th might start to pick up a little bit, but definitely by the 19th. The 19th, for the rest of the year, you're gonna see a lot of people wanting to come enjoy all of the Christmas lights and shows in Dollywood. So I would anticipate most people being off work, being off school by the 19th, and 20th are gonna be busy leading up to Christmas. Now you can see Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, the park itself is not open, but you're going to see, again, massive crowds on the 26th, 27th, all the way through the 31st. Now the park closes on New Year's Eve, just like it normally will. It doesn't stay open till midnight or anything like that. So if you're wanting to do some fun celebration, there are other places in the Pigeon Forge area where you can go see fireworks, or even into Gatlinburg and go to the Space Needle. However, there's no actual New Year's Eve activities at Dollywood. Finally, we get to January. You can see the park is open for 4 days in January, and then it's closed on the 5th and the rest of January. And again, typically throughout the entire month of February, and it's not going to reopen until March of 2026. Over the last several years, we've seen the park add extra days into the calendar, so we don't know what the 2026 calendar is like. I could see them perhaps adding a day or two. I don't see them yet at that point where they could open the park year-round and be open in February. But there's a quick overview of the 2025 schedule for Dollywood. Now, we live right down the road from the theme park, which we go to often. But if I didn't live here, if I lived on the other side of the country and I could only come to Dollywood once this year, I was given one day that I could pick, I would probably try to pick a day in October. And the reason why is I love the fall weather. I love the fall colors, if I can catch them even just a little bit, or when they're just starting before the crowds get massive. And I love the Harvest Festival. I love all the pumpkins, and I would say Christmas and Harvest are probably, you know, right there side by side as our favorite. Some days I feel like I like the Christmas Festival better, and then other days I like the Harvest Festival better. So for me, I would pick October. However, if you have kids and you can only travel this summer, I would aim for a weekday in June or July, and again, try to avoid that Independence Day weekend, that first weekend in July. Hopefully this video has been helpful to answer the question, when is the best time to visit Dollywood? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Are you planning to visit Dollywood? Was this video helpful? Make sure you are subscribed, as we will be doing guides for all of the different festivals coming this year, from the different tasting passes and the new restaurant that's opening, and much, much more Dollywood content to help you maximize your time at Dollywood Theme Park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. If you made it this far in the video, we thank God for you. Until next time, we'll see you on the next adventure.